When your cat stares at you after doing something wrong and then slowly closes their eyes, most owners think it's just a look. It's not. That blink is one of the most emotionally loaded signals in the entire cat behavioral vocabulary, and the science of what your cat's brain is doing in the 3 seconds before that blink happens will permanently change the way you understand every moment of conflict you've ever had with them. And here's what makes this even more urgent. There are 6 other things your cat does to apologize that look nothing like an apology at all. And most owners don't just miss them, they actively punish their cat for offering them. So if you've spent years wondering whether your cat actually feels something when things go wrong between you two, the answer is yes. They just speak a language you were never taught to read. Most people think cats don't apologize, and that assumption makes sense if you're measuring cats against dogs, because dogs make their remorse visible. They cower, they lower their heads, they tuck their tails, and make themselves physically small. The apology is unmistakable. Cats don't do any of that. So the conclusion most owners reach is that cats simply don't feel it. That when something breaks in the relationship, your cat has already moved on before you've even had a chance to process being upset. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is that your cat has been apologizing to you in ways that are written directly into their evolutionary biology and their deepest social instincts. The reason you've been missing it isn't because they don't care. It's because nobody ever explained what you were actually looking at. We'll get to one signal in particular later in this video. The one that looks almost human, the one most owners completely overlook and accidentally punish their cat for. And when we get there, you'll understand why it might be the most important thing in this entire conversation. Keep that in the back of your mind. 1. Your cat stares at you and then slowly blinks. In a moment, I'm going to tell you what happens inside your cat's brain in the seconds before that blink, and it completely reframes what the gesture actually costs them. But first, here's the part most owners never think about. You've probably heard that a slow blink from your cat means trust. That part isn't new. What almost nobody talks about is the neurological sequence that leads to it, especially after conflict. When your cat senses tension in the room, maybe you raised your voice, maybe your body language shifted, maybe your energy changed. Their amygdala fires a stress response. Every survival instinct they have is telling them to either flee or freeze. And instead of doing either of those things, your cat looks directly at you and chooses to close their eyes. Think about what that actually means. A predator, an animal hardwired to monitor its environment at all times, is choosing to go temporarily blind while facing a source of stress. That is not casual. That is a deliberate emotional risk. A 2020 study from the University of Sussex confirmed that cats use slow blinking as an intentional social signal. But what the study also found was something most articles don't mention. Cats who received slow blinks back showed measurably lower cortisol levels in the aftermath of conflict. Your response literally changes their body chemistry. When you blink back, their stress drops. When you stay frustrated and ignore it, their nervous system registers it as a failed repair attempt. And here's the part that should really land. If your cat keeps offering slow blinks after conflict and never receives one back, over time, they stop trying. They don't escalate. They don't become aggressive. They just go quiet. And that silence looks like peace. It is not peace. That is a cat who gave up on reaching you. Most owners go their cat's entire life never recognizing that signal for what it is, and their cat spent years offering it. To your cat, a slow blink after tension isn't a casual gesture. It's the equivalent of putting down every weapon they have and saying, with full vulnerability, that they want things to be okay between you two. The next time it happens, blink back, slowly. Hold it for a breath. That small response is one of the most powerful things you can do for the bond you share. 2. They headbutt you completely out of nowhere. Here's what most people don't realize about this one, and it completely changes the meaning depending on when it happens. You've probably experienced this. You're sitting on the couch, still a little tense after scolding your cat for something, and suddenly they walk right up and press their forehead into your hand or your face. Most owners laugh it off or assume the cat just wants attention. But when this happens specifically after conflict, what your cat is actually doing is something far more deliberate than affection. Cats have scent glands concentrated along their forehead, cheeks, and chin. When they press their head against you, they're depositing pheromones onto your skin, a behavior called bunting. In a relaxed, everyday context, yes, it signals affection and familiarity. But when it happens right after tension, the meaning shifts entirely. Here's what most people miss about that shift. When stress fills a room, your cat can literally smell the change. Stress hormones alter your body's chemical signature, and to an animal who reads the world primarily through scent, the way you read it through facial expressions, that altered scent registers as a disruption in the bond. The emotional anchor between you two has been disturbed. So what does your cat do? They walk over and remark you. They're not just being sweet, they are actively overriding the tension with their own scent, restoring the chemical signature that tells their nervous system that this person is still theirs, and they are still safe. What makes this even more telling is the timing. Cats will bunt casually with familiar people in calm moments. But when bunting happens within minutes of conflict, behavioral researchers note that the behavior intensifies. Longer contact, more deliberate pressure, often repeated. That's not coincidence. That's intention. Your cat is refusing to let the disruption become permanent. In the most primal language available to them, they're telling you they choose you, even right now, even after this. And hey, if this is already making you see your cat differently, go ahead and hit subscribe. It's the best way to make sure more cat owners stop missing these moments. 3. They drop their favorite toy right next to you. Stay with me on this one, because this is where the behavior starts to look less like instinct and more like something you'd recognize in a human being. Have you ever been upset with your cat and then found a toy sitting beside you on the couch? Maybe near your feet? Maybe right on your lap? Most owners toss it aside, or assume their cat just wants to play. But consider the specific toy, not the crinkle ball that rolled under the couch, not the one they haven't touched in weeks, the favorite one. The one they carry from room to room, the one they sleep curled around at 3 a.m. Cats are not retrieval animals. They don't fetch things to please you the way dogs do. When a cat brings you something, there is always a reason rooted in their behavioral architecture. And while hunting instinct drives some offering behavior, animal behaviorists have observed something distinct. When a cat places an object near their owner, specifically after a period of emotional tension, the behavior closely mirrors what's called a reconciliation offering in social animal dynamics. They are not inviting you to play. They are giving you something of value because the relationship needs repair. Think about that from your cat's perspective for a moment. They have one thing in their world that brings them comfort and security. It's not food. They know where that comes from. It's not their bed. It's that specific toy. And in the middle of emotional distance between you two, they pick it up, carry it over, and place it at your feet. That is sacrifice. They are offering the thing that soothes them because they are hoping it will reach you. Most owners go their cat's entire life without ever registering what that gesture actually is. The toy gets moved or ignored, the cat walks away, and neither of them ever knows that an apology just happened. So the next time you find something placed near you after a rough moment, don't dismiss it. Pick it up. Look at your cat. Let them know you received what they gave you. Now, here's the subplot I want to weave through the rest of this video, because it puts everything we're talking about into sharper focus. There's a pattern that happens in a lot of households, probably more than most owners would ever admit to. A cat does something they're scolded for repeatedly. The owner gets frustrated. The cat starts offering these signals, the blinks, the bunting, the quiet approaches, and the owner, not knowing what any of it means, either ignores them or responds with more frustration. And slowly, incrementally, the cat stops. Not because they stopped caring, but because every attempt at repair got rejected. Keep that thread in mind, because we're going to return to it. 4. They start licking your hands or your face. Here's what nobody tells you about why this one shows up specifically after conflict. And it's not just emotional, it's physiological. When your cat hops into your lap after tension and starts grooming your fingers or your chin, it's easy to chalk it up to quirky cat behavior. But mutual grooming between cats, called allo-grooming, is one of the most selective social behaviors in the entire feline behavioral repertoire. Studies on feral cat colonies have shown that cats do not groom every member of their group. They groom only the individuals they share the strongest social bonds with. This behavior isn't about hygiene. It never was. It's a relationship maintenance tool, used specifically to repair and reinforce the bonds that matter most. Here's what makes it even more layered. When cats engage in allogrooming to resolve tension within a group, researchers have observed a measurable drop in heart rate in both individuals. Not just the one being groomed, both of them. Which means when your cat licks your hand after a conflict between you two, their own nervous system is calming itself through the act of repairing things with you. Apologizing to you is literally how they regulate their own stress. The bond between you is so embedded in their biology that healing it heals them. In cat language, this gesture means you are one of the only beings in their world they would offer this to. In the wild, allo-grooming is reserved exclusively for trusted allies. And even though your cat has been domesticated, that selectivity is still in them. When they groom you after conflict, they are not just being sweet. They are placing you in the category of individuals worth the vulnerability of repair. Most owners have been receiving the signal for years without realizing it's one of the highest forms of trust their cat can express. That's worth sitting with. 5. They roll over and show you their belly. Here's where it gets really important, because this is the apology signal that most owners get completely backwards, and the mistake they make in response to it ends up making everything worse. Have you ever scolded your cat and watched them immediately flop onto their side and expose their stomach? Most people assume the cat is being playful, or worse, that they're being dismissive of what just happened. Neither is true. What you're actually looking at is one of the most vulnerable gestures in a cat's entire behavioral vocabulary. A cat's belly houses their vital organs: heart, lungs, intestines. In the wild, no cat would ever willingly expose that area to anything they perceived as a threat. The belly is never shown to an enemy. It is never casually offered. Even among bonded cats, belly exposure is rare and significant. When your cat rolls over directly after conflict and shows you their most physically vulnerable point, they are not playing. They are surrendering. They are doing the cat equivalent of putting both hands up and saying, "I'm not a threat. Please don't stay angry with me." And here's where most owners make the mistake that the cat never recovers from in that moment. They see the belly and instinctively reach down to touch it, and the cat swipes or bites or twists away. Now the owner is more frustrated than before, and they think the cat was being manipulative or unpredictable. But the cat was never asking to be touched. They were asking to be forgiven. Reaching for their belly in that moment takes the vulnerability they just offered and turns it into a physical intrusion. And to the cat, that registers as a violation of the very trust they were trying to rebuild. What your cat actually needs in that moment is simply for you to receive the message without exploiting the opening. Stay calm, lower your voice, offer a slow blink. Let them know you understood what they said. That is all. That small shift in how you respond can completely change how safe your cat feels about trying to repair things with you in the future. And if you've ever grabbed at a belly in that context and been bitten for it, now you know why. They weren't being aggressive. They were protecting an apology that didn't land the way they meant it. Remember earlier when I mentioned the pattern of a cat whose every repair attempt gets rejected? This is where that pattern does the most damage. Because belly exposure after conflict is the most vulnerable form of reaching out a cat can offer, and if that reaches you and gets punished, by touch, by frustration, by a voice that's still sharp, your cat learns something they carry for a long time. They learn that making themselves vulnerable to you makes things worse, not better, and they start to withdraw. 6. They follow you everywhere without making a single sound. This is the one I told you about at the beginning, the one that looks almost human. the one most owners completely miss, and the one that, once you understand it, might be the most important thing in this entire conversation. Here's how it usually unfolds. Something tense happens. Maybe you scolded your cat. Maybe the atmosphere in your home has been stressful for a few days, and suddenly your cat is just there. Not meowing, not asking for food, not rubbing against your legs, just showing up quietly in every room you move to. You go to the kitchen, they're on the counter. You move to the bedroom, they're in the doorway. You sit on the couch, they settle on the cushion just a foot away from you. Watching, waiting, present. Most owners don't even register it as a behavior. They notice it vaguely and move on. But this is the signal. This is the one. Cats are solitary by nature. This is not a species that needs social proximity the way dogs do. When a cat wants space, they disappear completely, and they are perfectly fine doing so. They have no biological need to stay near a source of stress. So when a cat chooses to do the exact opposite, when they follow you from room to room in silence, staying close without demanding anything, without performing anything, without using any of the other tools in their behavioral toolkit, that is a deliberate choice made against their natural instinct. Behavioral researchers describe this as proximity maintenance, and it's been observed in bonded primates after social conflict as well. Instead of vocalizing or making physical contact, the individual simply reduces distance and waits. No demands, no grand gesture, just presence. The message is, I'm not going to force anything, but I'm not leaving either. I'll stay here until things feel right between us again. And if you think about the human version of this, the times you've had a falling out with someone you love deeply and you don't have the words yet, so you just exist in the same space. You make tea. You sit nearby. You don't perform anything. You're just there. That is exactly what your cat is doing. The fact that an animal who is biologically equipped to walk away and be completely self-sufficient is instead choosing to stay within arm's reach of you, in silence, through emotional discomfort, tells you more about what you mean to them than almost anything else they could ever do. Most owners go their cat's entire life misreading this as neediness or a coincidence. Their cats spend years sitting quietly in doorways, following softly down hallways, being present in the most understated and tender way possible. And the owner never knew it was an apology, never knew it was love, never knew their cat was saying, without a single sound, that you are the most important thing in their world, and they were not willing to let distance grow between you. This is what happens when you don't know the language. Not just the good signals go unread. The deepest ones do. Go back to that pattern we were following. The owner who kept missing the repair attempts, who kept responding with frustration, who watched their cat go quieter and quieter over time. Now you understand what that silence was. It wasn't distance. It was a cat who had run out of ways to reach someone who couldn't hear them. The slow blinks that never got returned, the bunting that got brushed off, the toy placed carefully beside a hand that never acknowledged it. And finally, the quiet presence in the doorway, day after day, hoping that nearness alone might be enough. That is the full arc of how a cat tries to hold on to someone they love. And the most heartbreaking version of this story is the one where the owner never found out what they were being offered. You don't have to be that story. The next time your cat holds your gaze after tension and slowly closes their eyes, blink back. The next time they press their forehead into your hand, let them. The next time they place something at your feet or sit just outside the door in silence, recognize it for what it is. Not quirky behavior, not neediness, not coincidence. Because to your cat, you are not just a person who feeds them and opens doors. You are the entire emotional center of their world, and every one of these signals, every blink, every headbutt, every quiet hour spent in your doorway, is your cat choosing you again and again in the only language they have. The question was never whether your cat apologizes. The question is whether you've been listening.